July 30th, 1975. A powerful man walks into a parking lot outside a restaurant near Detroit. He is angry. He is impatient. And he believes he is about to meet two mafia figures. Witnesses see him standing beside his car. Then, he vanishes. No screams. No gunshots. No body. No evidence. For nearly 50 years, investigators, journalists, and former mob members have tried to answer one terrifying question. What really happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Was he murdered by the Mafia? Buried beneath concrete? Burned in a crematorium? Or did someone much more powerful silence him forever? Tonight, we uncover the complete story behind America's most famous disappearance. In American history, very few disappearances became as legendary as the case of Jimmy Hoffa. His name became larger than life, a symbol of corruption, a symbol of power, and eventually, a symbol of mystery. For decades, rumors spread across the United States. Some believed his body was hidden beneath stadiums. Others believed he was dissolved in acid. Some even claimed he escaped the country and started a new life. But the truth is far darker. To understand why Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, we first need to understand who he was, and why so many dangerous people wanted him gone. This is the hidden story of Jimmy Hoffa. James Riddle Hoffa was born on February 14, 1913, in Brazil, Indiana. His father was a coal miner who died when Jimmy was still a child. After his father's death, the family struggled financially. Eventually, they moved to Detroit, Michigan. Detroit in the 1920s was a brutal industrial city. Factories dominated the skyline. Workers were underpaid, hours were long, and employers had enormous power. Young Jimmy Hoffa quickly learned that survival depended on strength. He dropped out of school and began working at grocery warehouses. There, he witnessed workers being abused by management. Many employees were terrified to complain because they feared losing their jobs. But Jimmy Hoffa was different. He was fearless, charismatic, aggressive, and incredibly intelligent. One day, warehouse workers refused to unload a shipment of strawberries. The fruit would spoil quickly, meaning management could not afford delays. Hoffa organized the workers and forced management to negotiate. It worked. That moment changed everything. Hoffa realized that organized labor could challenge powerful corporations. And from that day forward, he dedicated his life to unions. He joined the Teamsters Union. At the time, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters represented truck drivers and warehouse workers. But under Hoffa, the union transformed into one of the most powerful organizations in America. Jimmy Hoffa was not a polished politician. He was rough, he shouted, he threatened, he intimidated. But workers loved him because he delivered results. He fought for better wages, better pensions, better health care, and improved working conditions. Truck drivers across America saw him as their champion. But Hoffa's rise also attracted dangerous allies. Because in mid-20th century America, unions and organized crime often became deeply connected. And no union was more connected to the Mafia than the Teamsters. During the 1940s and 1950s, organized crime families across the United States realized labor unions could become incredibly profitable. If criminals controlled unions, they could influence businesses, construction projects, transportation systems, and massive pension funds. The Teamsters Union controlled billions of dollars. That money became extremely attractive to Mafia families. Jimmy Hoffa developed relationships with powerful mob figures. These relationships helped him rise faster inside the union. In return, the Mafia gained access to Teamsters' money and influence. One of the most important connections involved Anthony "Tony" Provenzano, a New Jersey mobster. Another involved Detroit Mafia figures connected to the Giacalone family. Hoffa denied being controlled by organized crime, and many workers genuinely believed he cared about labor rights. But federal investigators became convinced that Hoffa and the Mafia were deeply connected. The Teamsters Pension Fund became especially controversial. Billions of dollars from workers' retirement funds were allegedly loaned to Mafia-connected construction projects, casinos, and businesses. As Hoffa's power grew, so did government attention. Soon, one man became obsessed with destroying him. His name was Robert Kennedy. In the late 1950s, Robert F. Kennedy served as chief counsel for the Senate committee investigating corruption in labor unions. Kennedy believed Jimmy Hoffa represented everything wrong with organized labor. The two men hated each other. Their public confrontations became legendary. Kennedy accused Hoffa of corruption, bribery, extortion, and criminal connections. Hoffa accused Kennedy of political ambition and personal obsession. Television audiences watched their explosive hearings. At times, Hoffa appeared calm and confident. At other moments, furious arguments erupted. Americans became fascinated. To some people, Hoffa looked like a tough working-class hero being attacked by wealthy politicians. To others, he looked like a dangerous criminal hiding behind union power. Robert Kennedy made Hoffa his top target. When John F. Kennedy became President of the United States in 1961, Robert Kennedy became Attorney General. That gave him enormous power. Federal investigations intensified. Eventually, Hoffa was convicted in two separate cases. One involved jury tampering, the other involved misuse of union pension funds. In 1967, Jimmy Hoffa entered federal prison. Many people assumed his career was over, but they underestimated him. Even behind bars, Hoffa remained influential. He still communicated with Teamsters officials. He still maintained relationships with organized crime figures. And he still dreamed of reclaiming power. However, while Hoffa sat in prison, another man rose inside the Teamsters Union. Frank Fitzsimmons. Unlike Hoffa, Fitzsimmons was easier for the Mafia to control. He was quieter, less aggressive, more cooperative. Powerful crime families benefited greatly from Fitzsimmons remaining Union president. Then, in 1971, President Richard Nixon commuted Hoffa's sentence. Hoffa walked free. But there was a condition. He was forbidden from participating in union activities until 1980. Hoffa was furious. He believed the restriction was unfair, and he became determined to take back control of the Teamsters. This decision may have sealed his fate, because by the early 1970s, many Mafia figures no longer viewed Hoffa as useful. They viewed him as dangerous. If Hoffa regained power, he might disrupt profitable arrangements already benefiting organized crime. And Hoffa was known for holding grudges. Some investigators later believed he threatened to expose Mafia secrets if blocked from returning to leadership. If true, that made him an enormous threat. A man with knowledge of corruption, money laundering, and criminal partnerships. A man who refused to stay silent. A man the Mafia may have decided needed to disappear. The morning of July 30th, 1975, began like any other summer day in suburban Detroit. Jimmy Hoffa was 62 years old. He was still fighting to regain influence, and according to later reports, he expected to attend an important meeting. The meeting was supposedly arranged with two Mafia-connected figures, Anthony Provenzano and Anthony Giacalone. The location was the Machus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Around 2 p.m., Hoffa arrived in the parking lot. Witnesses later saw him waiting beside his green Pontiac Grandville. But something seemed wrong. The men he expected had not arrived. At approximately 2:15 p.m., Hoffa called his wife, Josephine. He sounded irritated. He complained that he had been stood up. That phone call became one of the last confirmed moments of his life. After that, Jimmy Hoffa vanished. When he failed to return home, his family became worried. The next day, investigators found Hoffa's car abandoned in a restaurant parking lot. There were no signs of struggle, no blood, no weapons, no body. Only questions. And those questions would haunt America for decades. Once Jimmy Hoffa disappeared, the FBI launched one of the most famous investigations in American history. Agents interviewed hundreds of witnesses. They tracked Mafia figures. They examined vehicles. They searched fields, lakes, garages, warehouses, and rural properties. Nothing. No remains. No murder weapon. No confirmed crime scene. The mystery exploded across newspapers and television. Rumors spread everywhere. Some people claimed Hoffa was buried beneath Giants Stadium in New Jersey. Others claimed he was fed to animals. Some believed he had been compacted into scrap metal. Every few years, investigators announced new searches, and every time, the public became fascinated all over again. One major theory involved a maroon Mercury Marquis. Investigators later found hair fibers inside the vehicle that appeared connected to Hoffa. This suggested Hoffa may have entered another car willingly, possibly because he trusted whoever approached him. That detail became critically important. Most investigators eventually concluded Hoffa had likely been lured into a vehicle by someone he knew. Then he was murdered quickly. Professional, efficient, silent. Exactly the kind of operation organized crime was known for. For decades, theories continued. Then a former mob associate named Frank Sheeran made shocking claims. Frank Sheeran was a union official and alleged hitman with ties to organized crime. Before his death, Sheeran claimed he personally killed Jimmy Hoffa. His confession became famous through the book I Heard You Paint Houses, and later inspired the 2019 film The Irishman. According to Sheeran, Hoffa entered a house in Detroit, believing he was attending a meeting. Inside, Hoffa realized too late that he had been betrayed. Sheeran claimed he shot Hoffa twice behind the ear. Then, according to the story, Hoffa's body was transported and destroyed. The confession shocked the world, but many investigators remained skeptical. Some evidence contradicted Sheeran's timeline. Others believed he exaggerated his role to gain attention. Still, the story kept the mystery alive. Could Frank Sheeran have been telling the truth? Or was he simply another man trying to become part of a legendary unsolved case? 1. Reason the Jimmy Hoffa case became so legendary is because no body was ever found. Without physical evidence, theories multiplied endlessly. One popular rumor claimed Hoffa was buried beneath Giants Stadium in New Jersey. The story became so widespread that it entered American pop culture. But investigators found no evidence supporting the claim. Another theory suggested Hoffa's body was sent to a crematorium immediately after the murder. Some former mob informants claimed his remains were crushed inside a junkyard vehicle. Others claimed he was buried beneath concrete foundations. In 2021, the FBI even searched a former landfill site in New Jersey based on new information. Again, nothing was found. The lack of a body made prosecution nearly impossible. Everyone suspected murder, but proving murder in court without remains became incredibly difficult. And organized crime families understood that perfectly. Over time, Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance became more than a criminal case. It became an American legend. Comedians joked about where his body was buried. Movies referenced him constantly. Conspiracy theories exploded. Entire books, documentaries, and television specials focused on the mystery. Why did the story capture people's imagination so deeply? Because it combined everything Americans found fascinating. Power, crime, politics, corruption, the Mafia, and an unsolved disappearance. Jimmy Hoffa represented a vanished era of America. An era when unions battled corporations. An era when organized crime secretly influenced business and politics. An era filled with smoke-filled rooms and dangerous alliances. And because no final answer ever emerged, the mystery never truly died. Over the years, thousands of pages of FBI documents became public. These files revealed how intensely investigators pursued the case. The FBI monitored Mafia figures for years. They used wiretaps, informants, surveillance teams, and undercover operations. Investigators strongly suspected organized crime involvement almost immediately. Yet despite decades of effort, prosecutors never secured murder convictions directly tied to Hoffa's disappearance. That failure frustrated investigators enormously. Some agents believed witnesses were too terrified to cooperate. Others believed evidence disappeared quickly after the murder. Professional criminals understood how to eliminate traces, and if Hoffa's body was destroyed soon after death, physical evidence may have vanished forever. The FBI officially declared Jimmy Hoffa legally dead in 1982, but the investigation technically never fully disappeared. Tips continued arriving for decades. Every few years, another witness claimed to know the truth. Another property was searched. Another rumor surfaced. Still, no definitive answer. Perhaps the most chilling part of the Hoffa mystery is imagining his final moments. Did he realize he was being betrayed? Did he enter the vehicle willingly? Did he argue with his killers? Or was the murder completed so quickly that he never understood what happened? Some theories suggest Hoffa trusted the people involved. That trust may have lowered his guard. Investigators believe the operation was carefully planned. The timing, the location, the transportation, the disposal. Nothing about the disappearance appeared random. Whoever orchestrated it likely prepared every detail in advance. And if organized crime truly carried out the murder, silence would have been strictly enforced. Fear kept witnesses quiet, loyalty protected those involved, and time slowly erased evidence. That combination created the perfect unsolved mystery. Even in modern times, the Hoffa case refuses to disappear. Investigators continue analyzing old evidence using newer technology: DNA testing, digital forensic analysis, ground-penetrating radar. Former mob associates continue making claims. Journalists continue uncovering hidden documents. Yet every new lead seems to create more questions. Some experts believe the truth has already been discovered privately by law enforcement. Others believe key details died alongside Mafia figures who never confessed. As the decades passed, many people connected to the case died. That makes solving the mystery increasingly difficult. Still, public fascination remains enormous. Because deep down, people hate unfinished stories. And Jimmy Hoffa's story may be the most famous unfinished story in American criminal history. Jimmy Hoffa's legacy remains deeply complicated. To supporters, he was a hero of the working class, a man who fought for laborers ignored by corporations, a leader who improved wages and protections for millions. To critics, he represented corruption, intimidation, and criminal influence inside labor unions. Both views contain truth. Hoffa was brilliant, determined, and highly effective. But he also operated inside a dangerous world, where power often depended on threats, alliances, and secrecy. That world eventually consumed him. His disappearance became symbolic of an era where organized crime held enormous hidden influence in America. And even today, the mystery continues haunting. On a hot summer afternoon in 1975, Jimmy Hoffa stepped into a parking lot, expecting a meeting. Instead, he walked into one of history's greatest unsolved disappearances. No one knows exactly where his body lies. No one knows his precise final words, and despite decades of investigations, searches, and confessions, the complete truth remains hidden. Perhaps that is why the story still fascinates the world, because Jimmy Hoffa vanished without closure, and mysteries without endings never truly die. Maybe somewhere, buried beneath concrete, hidden inside forgotten land, or locked within the memories of dead mobsters, the final answer still waits. But until that answer is found, the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa remains one of America's darkest mysteries. If you enjoyed this deep investigation into the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa, make sure to support the channel. Subscribe to The Hidden Record for more dark mysteries, unsolved disappearances, hidden history, and true crime stories from around the world. And comment below, what do you think really happened to Jimmy Hoffa? Was he murdered by the Mafia? Did someone powerful cover up the truth? Or is there still a secret nobody has uncovered yet? Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss another mystery. Because here at The Hidden Record, some stories are never truly buried.